Hello everyone, factoring into the fifth update for winter of 2016-2017. So we've done 4 updates so far. I think they've been quite interesting and pretty successful in terms of the viewer stats. We started these updates at the start of September. We've got another 5 to do, so actually halfway through the winter updates already, can you believe we've reached the halfway point. So once again this week we're going to have a look at solar activity, we're going to have a look at some analogues, we're going to have a look at what's going on in the oceans, particularly in terms of ENSO, what's happening in the Pacific Ocean. We will also have a look at Siberian snow cover, see how that's progressed over the past week as well. So a lot to be getting on. We're going to try and keep this under half an hour for you. They've been getting a bit long, these updates over the past few weeks. I'm going to try to keep this one at or under half an hour. We'll see whether we can pull it off. Now, just say about the seasonal update for the ECMWF. I was hoping to be able to bring you that this afternoon. Fortunately, I'm not going to be able to bring that update to you this week. I've run out of time to get the charts ready and interpret them. Quite time consuming for me to be able to interpret those charts. So that'll be with you this time next week. I'll do that Sunday next week. In a week's time in the afternoon, you'll be able to see the GavsWeatherVid's interpretation of the October update of the ECMWF. But things will be happening this afternoon at the website because there's going to be a written post starting off the Christmas update. So very interesting. The Christmas page will be unleashed at GavsWeatherVids.com this afternoon. That's just a bit of fun. But it's time to start thinking perhaps a bit about Christmas. And of course, the video updates for Christmas, not going to be long now before they start. They always get underway at the start of November. So I always do a couple of written posts sort of as a teaser in October. And then we get the actual Christmas updates going in November, so not long to wait before they begin. But this afternoon we'll have a written post for Christmas. Just a bit of fun with that one. And sorry, I've been unable to bring you the ECM seasonal interpretation this week. Had hoped to be able to do it, but as I say, just run out of time, and it'll take me a few days to get those charts interpreted. So that will be with you a week today. Of course, a week today will be the 6th winter update as well. So I'll go with the 5th winter update in a second. Before I go on with that, just to say about the ads. Now, there's links to articles on all of the pages. Have a browse widgets and click through the links. If there's any articles that you're interested in, you'll be helping us to pay for our website. Thanks very much for doing that. There's also video ads on most pages, which open up content when you watch it goes back up again. It does help to pay for GavsWeatherVids.com. And just say it's going to be quite a long video, so if you can't watch it all in one go, don't worry, it'll be kept at website indefinitely. All you have to do is go to the written, go to Winter Updates page, and you get to that via the home page. Go there, and the video will be placed on the Winter Updates page indefinitely. There's also going to be a written post, just writing in a written version what we've discussed through the video. So you'll be able to read the written post and watch the video whenever you want on demand, and just enjoy the video. It's going to be quite a long one, of course, so sit down, have a cup of tea, and a few biscuits, and see what's in store for the 5th update. And with that said, I think we had better get on. So we're going to start off with solar activity. This is the solar disk on our side of the disk today from solarham.net. Now, last week, when I did the 4th update, we actually had a spotless sun. We had a spotless solar disk. Not the case for this week. We've got some sunspots. Actually, solar activity is officially designated by Solarham as being very low, at very low levels right now. But there are some sunspots, whereas last week we had a spotless sun. Just these sunspots aren't really doing a great deal. So this is the GavsWeatherVids Winter Update Daily Solar Activity Tracker from our good friend James Ackland. I know James is going to be watching the video. Thanks very much for doing the solar tracker for us, James. So what this is monitoring is sunspot activity throughout the season. We are going to finish up over here when we end the winter updates. We'll end them right, excuse me, right over there at the end of the chart. But we can go right way back to the start of June, back into the summer with this, and you notice that back in June we had a run of several entirely spotless days. Each spot here, each orange spot, is essentially 1 day's worth of sunspots. So you see there was a big run through June of spotless days. Then we crept up with these sunspots. Then we went down in July, and then in August we went back up again. So we're going up and down a bit with the solar activity right now, as you'd expect us to, because we aren't yet in solar minimum. We won't be in solar minimum until around 18 months' time. So whilst, of course, activity will be declining down into solar minimum, it's not going to be a linear process, and we're going to get spikes in activity. Now, where we was last week with the tracker was just here. That's our spotless day that we had last week when we did the 4th update. Since then, it's been up all the way, really, with the sunspots through the past week. So each day has had a few more spots, except for that one just there, which did tick down a little bit. The latest is that we are up here. It looks like quite a big increase in activity, but if we was to compare this to, say, solar maximum, we was to have a look at our solar cycle 24 overall solar cycle 24 chart, this would look very weak in terms of activity compared to the solar maximum that happened around the start of 2014. But activity has increased over the past week. We've got to be mindful of these spikes in activity through the winter. The basic idea with this is that the weaker the solar activity, the greater the chance of northern blocking. And the reasons aren't well understood, but it's probably to do with the way the solar particles coming off the sun, essentially the sun's energy, interacts with the jet stream. And when the sun is very active, it increases the jet stream, whereas when the sun is weak, it has an effect of weakening the jet stream. And that's particularly so for the Atlantic and Europe. I think the evidence of this is less so for Asia and for North America. But for the Atlantic and for Europe, there is a connection between weakened solar activity, or solar minimums, and also colder winter. So you want weak activity, but we've got to be mindful, for a cold winter you want weak activity, but we've got to be mindful of the fact that we are increasing the activity on some days, albeit the trend is downward. So we may get a prolonged run of spotless days at some point in the next few weeks. But even if we get that before the winter, when we do winter forecast, we still have to think a little bit that we're not in solar minimum just yet. So it's always a bit of a quandary, this part of the solar cycle, because we're waiting to get into solar minimum, but we're not there yet. So it always presents a little bit of a problem for me when I come to do the forecast at this point of the solar cycle. We'll have a look at the Scouts-Worthy Solar Tracker again next week for the 6th winter update. Right, sea surface temperature anomaly is next. This was the view across the oceans from NOAA last week when we did the 4th update. Of course, 3 regions we're specifically interested in. We're interested in the northern part of the Atlantic over here. We're interested in the northern Pacific. And then we're interested in the ENSO region, which is just here from Peru over towards Indonesia. The situation is that we are just on a borderline between ENSO neutral and La Nina just here. Now, we did the analysis, reanalysis, back in the earlier updates, of course. I think it was updates 2 and 3, where we focused on La Nina, and we saw that to get a cold winter, or to increase the chance, as ever with these things, you might talk about them directly and say, to get a cold winter, we want a La Nina. That's not right, really. It's just increasing your chance, if you like. And that's the same with solar activity as well. Even when we're in solar minimum, we might still get mild winters, but solar minimum increases our chance of a cold winter. And we established through reanalysis that weak La Nina states probably increase our chance of a cold winter as well. But of course, there's never, with the weather and the climate, any guarantees. So that was a situation when we did last week's update. Let's have a look and see the latest. Now, this is quite interesting. We have seen a fairly big decrease in temperatures over the past week through the ENSO region. There it is. I think all regions of the ENSO region has cooled. So all parts of the Equatorial Pacific have cooled. Again, if we go back and let's just go, sorry about that. So let's just go back and have a look. That's the right chart. Let's just go back and have a look at last week. And there it is. So that situation last week. Going forwards again, this is the latest, and it does appear that all parts of the ENSO regions have cooled. We have moved quite significantly there. That's quite a cool down for a week. We have moved towards a weak La Nina episode. This isn't entirely unexpected because we saw with the SOI, Southern Oscillation Index last week, but we have had quite a big drop of the SOI during the past couple of weeks. So it's not a huge surprise that we've had this cooling through the ENSO region, but that is the evidence that things have got a little bit colder there through the equatorial part of the Pacific Ocean. Elsewhere, we remain significantly warmer than average up here over in the northeastern corner of the Pacific Ocean. And this is something we've seen quite a lot since around 2014. Been a very warm period up in the northeastern Pacific. I'm not sure why, because this is normally quite a cold place, and these charts are normally covered with blue up here. But in any case, it remains warm up there. That possibly will increase the chance of a cold winter for northern eastern parts of America. For us, though, these warm anomalies that we had in the northeastern Pacific have been going with an increased Atlantic jet stream, because the cold air does something like that, essentially comes down into northern eastern America, hits the Atlantic, and blows up the jet stream, and that brings the storm track across the Atlantic into UK and Europe. So whilst we've had all this warmth up here over the past few winters, it has been coinciding with pretty mild and times quite stormy winters here in the UK and in Europe. So I'm not sure this warm anomaly persisting in the northeastern Pacific, I'm not sure that's terribly good news for our winter fate, to be honest. But there we go, it's still there, and it shows no sign of abating. So we're going to have to work with that this winter. It probably does go against chance of a cold winter for the UK and for Europe. But as ever, there's no one element, no one driver that is the key factor. Over in the Atlantic, let's just go back and have a look at last week. So that was the situation last week. Go forward again to the latest. I think the cold blob that we talked a lot about last year with the winter updates, I think that is beginning to re-emerge here in the Northern Atlantic Ocean. And this probably isn't terribly good news for our winter fate either, because when you get this cold blob in the central part of the Atlantic Ocean, it seems to coincide with increased westerlies, increase in the jet stream. So the Northern Pacific and the Northern Atlantic, I don't think they are terribly good news at the moment. I don't think it's terribly good news if you want a cold winter. One plus side for the Atlantic, though, is that the tropics are still looking quite warm, and here over towards the Caribbean as well. That's all quite good news if you want a cold winter. I don't think the NAO, North Atlantic Oscillation, will be as positive this winter, but it is a little bit on the concerning side if you want blocking and cold weather to see this cold pool in the Northern Atlantic beginning to show signs of re-emerging. Essentially, you want to take this cold water down to here, so you want to have it cold here. I'll get rid of that. So what you want is to have it cold just through here. Then this area where it is quite cold, you want this to be warm, and then down here, of course, through the tropics, you want that warm as well. So you have a tripole, warm, cold, warm, and that is essentially what you're looking for if you want blocking and a negative NAO. So the Northern Atlantic, Northern Pacific, perhaps not terribly good news for winter, but in terms of the Equatorial Pacific, that has moved more towards La Nina condition. Now, this is the SOI. I showed you this last week. I think what's happened over the past week is in response to the SOI. So, just recapping on the Southern Oscillation Index, it's an index that reflects the state of the atmosphere in the Southern Ocean, in the Southern Pacific Ocean, from Darwin in Northern Australia, to Tahiti. When the SOI is very positive, that's telling you that the atmosphere, as ever with these indexes, the NAO and AO are the same, the indexes are being driven by the atmosphere. So it's not the case that the index is driving the atmosphere, it's the other way around. The atmosphere drives the index. So when the SOI is very positive, it tells you that the atmosphere is in a La Nina type setup. And we did get quite a lot of positivity of the SOI through late September. So on the 25th, for example, went to plus 18, 26th of September went to plus 23, 27th went to plus 17, and so on. 30th of September was at plus 27. Very positive numbers. And I think what's happened with the cooling of the equatorial Pacific over the past week is in response to that rise in the SOI, which is the atmosphere essentially going into a La Nina setup. And what you've got to do to get either La Nina or El Nino, what you have to do to get these events really going is to hook up the ocean and the atmosphere. You have one fighting against the other. Normally, it's the atmosphere fighting against the ocean. If you get that, then you're going to struggle to get in place these events. And that's what's been going on through the summer. That's why we struggled to get into La Nina through the summer. The latest is that we haven't been as positive through early October with the SOI. So over the past week, the first comes out at plus 13, the second comes out at plus 7, and then the third was round neutral, really. Fourth goes positive up to plus 4, but that's very weak. Fifth, sixth and seventh are plus 11, plus 12 and plus 10, so getting more towards the atmosphere reflecting La Nina. But then the very latest, at the 8th, has gone down more or less to neutral once again. So I would expect that over the next week, we probably won't see as much cooling as we've had over the past week in the equatorial part of the Pacific Ocean. But if we get any more crashes any more rises in the SOI like this, start seeing these numbers coming through again during the course of October, so sort of plus 23, plus 27. If we get those numbers again, I wouldn't be at all surprised if we see further cooling of the equatorial Pacific Ocean. And the CFS V2 is moving more now towards a weak La Nina event. Remember, a couple of weeks ago, the trend with the model was essentially to do something like this. This is the temperature anomaly scale just here. So that is that's just into La Nina territory just there. It's borderline neutral, just into La Nina. And that's where we have been, in this sort of area just here. And the model was indicating that was going to continue through into the winter like that, and then start to rise up like that. But now you notice the black dash line is moving more into weak La Nina territory. Ignore this, by the way. This is just one member of the CFS V2 ensemble. It's going for a very strong La Nina, but it's an outlier. It's not supported. So ignore that one. And anyway, if you want a cold winter, you don't want a strong La Nina. That is almost certainly curtains for... excuse me, it's almost certainly curtains for a cold winter if La Nina goes strong. What you want is a weak La Nina, and that's the sort of thing that CFS V2 is now going for, with that black dash line going down to around -1 in terms of the temperature anomaly through the central part of the equatorial Pacific Ocean. Quite interesting that the CFS is moving a little bit towards weak La Nina as we start to see the SOI rising and that cold water through the equatorial Pacific increasing. We'll look at the oceans again next week. Right, let's have a look at hurricane activity. Now, we know we've been hearing all about Hurricane Matthew, so we know there has been more developments through the tropical Atlantic Ocean over the past week. Currently, this is how the 2016 Atlantic hurricane season is looking. We've had 15 storms, 14 total storms, 6 hurricanes, and 2 major Category 3 or above hurricanes. If we compare that to last year, to 2015, well, we've already sort of reached last year's number. So we had 11 total storms, 4 hurricanes, and 2 major hurricanes. So we've gone past that, certainly in terms of total storms and total hurricanes. We've gone past last year. We're at last year's level with major hurricanes, but it's still fairly early in the season. We've got October and into November to go. We can expect more hurricane activity, particularly as the ocean through the tropics of the Atlantic is quite warm, and also around here around the Caribbean. So we can expect more hurricanes over the next few weeks, and I think this is going to be the strongest hurricane season since 2012. It won't reach 2012. That was a rather epic hurricane season. I don't think we'll get to that sort of level, but it is going to be a stronger hurricane season than we've had recently. And we look at this because hurricanes are taking heat out of the tropics and distributing them around the planet, and essentially they're going up eventually into the North Pole where the heat is dumped. If you get lots of heat being dumped in the pole via these hurricanes and storms, then eventually it can translate that to an increased chance of blocking. This is an old theory that I've heard about years ago from Joe Bastardi, formerly from AccuWeather, and now at Weatherbell. This is one of Joe Bastardi's theories, and it does seem to hold quite a bit of water. That's why I include it in the winter update. So things are moving still with hurricane activity. QBO next. Won't dwell on this too much. We know we're in a very unusual state with the QBO. Are we westerly, which is indicated by the darker colour, or are we easterly, which is indicated by the white colour? We should be easterly with the QBO. We should be doing something like this and like this and like this. The QBO, when it's easterly, tells you that the zonal westerlies are reduced, are weakened. So easterly QBOs enhance your risk of a colder winter. It's not quite that straightforward. There are plenty of winters that were easterly QBOs that are also mild and zonal, but it does increase your chance a little bit having easterly QBO. We should be easterly, as I say, but we should have gone easterly at the start of the year. We didn't, and we don't really know why we didn't. But the westerly QBO hung on. It could be down to that El Nino that we had, the Super Nino, at the start of the year. However, the easterly QBO is expanding. Since we started these updates, and I think we need to go back to update 1 really and see how the chart looked. But since we started the updates at the beginning of September, I reckon this white area has expanded and grown. And I think this grey area, the westerly QBO, essentially, is beginning to shrink. We might, by the winter, be in an easterly QBO. Very complicated to know what's going on with the QBO. And I'm going to try and do more on this as we get into the latter part of the updates in November, because I think this is an important story, an important player for this winter. So I'll do more on that when we get into the final part of the updates in November. Right, Siberian snow cover next. This is the situation across Siberia and the Russian plain in terms of snow cover when we did the last update. And we did last week's update, the 4th update. We was pretty good then. There was no other year actually in the record back to 1998 that had more snow. So we're doing pretty well this time last week. Shall we have a look at the latest? So we'll have a look at where we are right now. This is from the 7th of October. And we can see that there's been very little development actually over the past week. So going back to the 30th of September, then going forward to the latest, there's been very little increase. A little bit has pushed down to the south, but there's been very little expansion of snow cover westwards across the Siberian plain. Let's have a look at the past years, back to 1998. So this is the situation on the 7th of October 1998. when we had more snow cover than we've got right now. 1999, I think it's on a par with where we are right now. Really, what do you think? Maybe a little bit more now compared to 1999, but not a great deal in it. 2000, again, we are up on the year 2000. We're probably up on the year 2001 as well. We are well behind 2002, which had a very big increase in snow cover at this point in 2002. We're in front of 2003. We're probably a bit in front of 2004 as well. We're in front of 2005 in terms of snow cover. We're more advanced than we was on the 7th of October. 2005. I think 2006 perhaps had a little bit more. 2007, I think we are doing better than we was at this point in 2007. We're doing a lot better than we was at this point in 2008 and 2009. Perhaps doing better than this point in 2010 as well. And 2011 probably, and 2012. So we're not doing badly really with the Siberian snow cover at the moment. 2013 had a big increase by this point, so we are behind 2013, probably on a par with 2014, and then finally we come at 2015, and we're probably behind the 7th of October 2015. So we're not doing too badly, but there are several years, of course, that are better in terms of Russian Siberian snow cover at this point. So we're probably somewhere in the middle, actually, probably around where we should be in terms of snow cover. But it is a bit of a stall compared to what we had last week, because when we did the 4th update, actually we hadn't had a year that was better in terms of snow cover for the 4th update. So we have stalled a bit with the snow cover across eastern parts of Russia and Siberia, but we're probably somewhere in the middle in terms of where we should be. We'll look at that again next week. The idea behind that, by the way, is when you get a rapid increase in snow cover across Siberia and Russia through October, it can help to increase the strength of the Siberian high, and that might coincide with an increased chance of colder weather for us. Just want to have a look at some analogues before I go. We're going to look at warm Septembers. How long have we been talking for? So 27 minutes. We're going to go over half an hour again, I think. Sorry about that. So we're going to have a look at analogues for September. We know how to very warm September. We came out at 16.0 with the CET, which is 2.5 degrees above average. I've asked our good friend James Acriel to look at past Septembers had CETs above 15 degrees and then reanalyse what happened through the winters of those years. There aren't all that many of them. There's only 11. And I'll just talk you very quickly through those years. So we start off with the winter of 1865, 1866, and that one looks zonal. We have high pressure to the east and south of us, low pressure in the Atlantic, and breeze flow through off the Atlantic like that. Looks generally mild and unsettled. The next one is winter of 1895. 1896. This one has lots of ridging out to the west, high pressure to the north and the east. So this is quite a settled winter, and probably not overly cold really either. Our next winter is the winter of 1898-99. This one looks very unsettled, mild and zonal. It's a mild winter, that one in 1899. Long gap then to a September that had a CET above 15 degrees. We go to 1929, 1930. This one looks really unsettled. Look at this deep trough out in the Atlantic. It is very Atlantic driven, so mild again for this winter that comes after September with a CET above 15 degrees. Next winter is 1949, 1950. This one looks very unsettled, just really westerly, bringing westerlies in off the Atlantic quite obviously. But next winter's a little bit more interesting from a colder perspective. This is 58, 59. And this one does have some colder weather, especially in January 1959. That's quite a cold month with higher pressure up towards Greenland to the north. That's low pressure doing something like that, and a southerly tracking jet stream. So that one is the first one that looks colder for us. The next one is 61-62. This is quite an interesting year. It was on and off a little bit, but there was some colder conditions, especially late winter. March 1962 was very cold, the coldest March of the 20th century, that one. Or certainly one of the coldest Marches of the 20th century, anyway, with northerly influences. As I say, it was on and off, so it wasn't continuously cold, but winter 61-62 did have some quite cool conditions, especially late December, and then again in late February and through into March. So a couple of interesting years there. Then another really long gap to 2005-2006. And this one looks like it should be a cold winter as well. Look at this. You have the high pressure up over Scandinavia. And we bring in these easterly winds. You would have thought. But actually, it didn't really come together. If you remember winter 2005-2006, it's a very odd winter. Came really close to producing a big freeze up, but somehow it just didn't quite come together. But there was some cold weather in there, and again particularly focused, I think, at the end of February and into March 2006, quite interestingly. And then we get another year, 2 years back to back, that have really warm September. So we go to winter 2006-2007. And this one is very obviously a mild winter. It's zonal all the way, really, with the flow coming through like that in 2006-2007. El Nino winter, of course. And then our last year, I think, there's maybe one more come after this. So our last year, or our penultimate year, is 2011-2012. Notice how these years with warm Septembers have increased over the past few years as well. Very rare up to 2006, and now we're getting a lot more of them. So 2011-2012 looks like this: high pressure to the west, low pressure to the north and to the east. That's wrong, that should be an L. And the flow of a jet stream doing something like that. Generally, 11-12 was quite a mild winter, but it did have quite a cold spell in early February, and for East and Southeastern Europe it was a very cold winter, particularly around the Balkans, severely cold in 2012. And then our last year is the winter of 2014-2015. And that one just looks zonal and Atlantic driven as well. So it appears that warm Septembers are a signal for milder winters, but there are a few years that are in there and quite interesting. This finally shows us a table of all the years with warm Septembers, and we actually go beyond the reanalysis with this. We go back to the 1700s. So our first year is 1701. And these are the winter CET anomalies for all of these years. So these are all of the years just here. This orange bracket is the anomalies for the Septembers. And then we've got the anomalies for the winter months just here. And finally, we have the winter CET anomalies just here. And notice since the 1800s, which is just here, most of these winter anomalies, I haven't got time to go through all of the individual years, but I might come back to this in the next update or in a subsequent update. Most of these years are in yellow and orange categories, so there's very few cold winters from the 1800s. But if we go back before that to the warm Septembers in the 1700s, there's quite a few of them actually, back from 1701, 1795. Then we do find more cold winters coming in actually, there, and there. They're really quite cold, maybe even fairly severe winters. So quite what explains that, I'm not sure. But it appears that back in the 1700s, a really warm September wasn't curtains, excuse me, wasn't curtains for a cold winter. There are several of them that follow those really warm Septembers. But from the 1800s onwards, it tends to be a signal for a milder winter, if anything. However, what I would say is that there are a few years that are quite interesting. For example, 2005, 2006, of course, back in 1950, it's 1958, 59. So there's a few years in there to play with, and there's not a huge number of years within the analog package either. So don't be all that despondent about warm September. Clearly, it is a signal for a milder winter, but it's by no means a guarantee of a mild winter, especially with the solar situation being in a very weak solar cycle. That might take us more towards the 1800s and 1700s, when things are a little bit more interesting, especially back in the 1700s. That is Little Ice Age, of course, so perhaps don't take that too seriously. But so with the warm September idea, yes, it looks like it favours a milder winter, but it's by no means a guarantee of anything, and you'll always get exceptions, and there's not a huge number of these years within the analogs package in any case. However, this update's probably tempered things a little bit. I know there was quite a bit of excitement after the fourth update. I think overall this fifth update has probably tempered the excitement a little bit. We'll see what the sixth update has to say, and we'll do that next Sunday, of course. And also next Sunday we will have that interpretation of the E70UF seasonal model. And later on today I'll have a written post on the GavsWeatherVids Christmas 2016 updates page. It'll be time to get that going later on this afternoon. So come back for that if you want a bit of a laugh, and to see what might, almost certainly won't, but what might happen on Christmas Day. Right, that's all for now. I've gone on over half an hour again. Sorry about that. There's so much to talk about this season. I hope you're enjoying the winter updates as we reach the halfway point. That's all for now. Thanks so much for watching.